So what I wanted for the main theme was something with a rhythm in it, something with wonder and mystery, but also had this kind of constant motif running, something that would remind you of a watch movement. And I don't know where it came from. I think I was in the shower or something, and I thought of the music, the theme music from Battlestar Galactica, the remake, the Edward Olmos one with Tricia Helfer and all of that. And great show, amazing show, but there was great music in there. And the opening piece of music was something that inspired me, but it was far too short. I couldn't just use that and chop it up and, you know, try to extend it. I realized I had to make my own version of it. So I started getting in and building it from the ground up. I had to figure out the rhythm that they were using and so on. And I started with just these rhythms here. It's kind of a bizarre, irregular pattern. It feels random, but it's not quite. So I had to kind of start with that, and then I built it up from there. So I added in details. So it sounded like a movement going. And then I added some Celtic dulcimer there. That really does sound like a movement. Then this little balalaika. Put them all together and you get that. I also wanted something in there to represent the ancientness of this law. You know, we're talking about isochronism, and it's been around since the dawn of time, assumably. So I wanted something to kind of represent that. And I came across, there's a funny sound in the Battlestar Galactica thing that I wasn't able to isolate by itself, but then I found some other version called Number 6, which refers to a character in the show played by Tricia Helfer, by the way. If you haven't seen Battlestar Galactica, Tricia Helfer, guys, you're welcome, okay? I'll just say that. But every time she shows up, she's kind of a weird, you don't know if she really exists or not, but whenever she'd show up, there'd be this sound here. And I was able to find on the internet, somewhere in there, just this by itself, I was able to isolate. Which is, it's like an ancient, it sounds like an ancient echo of a cowbell or something. And it has that odd whistle. So I would bring in that whenever I mention isochronism in the episode, I would bring in that sound. So you'll notice when I start alluding to the ancient laws of isochronism, you'll hear that sound come in again.
Behaves just like the pendulum.
The next challenge was the swells, the string sounds. I started using some BBC samples here. So I'm using a sample here that has expression control. So I'm able to make it go louder and then fade it down. So what works best is if you hold a chord, and just as you get to the top, you come back down again. So that way it has that breathing quality. It's ebbing and flowing, it swells. So I'm using violas there. I'm also using violins. It's a stronger sound. You see, and you're able to kind of achieve that kind of natural thing. Because if I just play it straight, it's just linear, there's no life to it. I also had some French horns in here too. Adding some nice majesty there. Then I added an extra sound here, a different pad that has some artifacts in it. I'll play it for you. That doesn't respond to the expression. But there's all these other strange artifacts. In there, it's a kind of cool sound. And then I added, I had this little effect. It just breathes, you know? It sounds like a strong wind that just dissipates. So I added that alongside of that, and I punch it in at a certain moment, you'll hear. I have flutes in here too. Just adding, you know, extra drama in there, and they go along with the, where are they? With these cellos that I have here. So there's kind of drama and threatening sound there. I also, as a kind of a build up to a dramatic build up at the end, I've got a French horn and a tuba. I love that sample because it's like you hear the the difficulty. It's not a very accurate instrument. Brass is so approximate, you know, it's not perfect, which is great. It's a nice sound, and then I've got a tuba for that stab, and then I raise the volume. This one didn't have any expression. It wouldn't. The sample doesn't respond to the expression, so I drew the expression myself, just with you know, a volume level, basically, kind of pretending. So you put them together. And it's a good kind of end stab when you're building up the... It's nice. So these are the layers that I eventually, where I was able to kind of reconstruct the entire theme and extend parts and remove different instruments and so on. Depending on what I needed for the episode. In fact, later on, I even just used the swells by themselves with no rhythm or anything. I just kind of shedded that and just came to the wonder, the magical sound. So that's with the breath and the artifacts and the cellos, violas, violins, the entire thing. Just so you get that huge majesty. Then later you add some extra reverb just to give it a cathedral kind of vibe. Pretty nice. So for the next part, I needed something totally different, with a kind of a different, completely different feel, different energy.
It casts a shadow.
And it was to describe the kind of slow progress of figuring out time and how it works. So I wanted something relaxing and a kind of a bedding so I could feed you a lot of information and not upset you, you know, like you want something that's, you know, you want a comfortable, warm room to be delivered a lot of technical information and historic information. So I came up with this little silly thing with a kind of a harp sound, little motif, creating a bedding like that. And I thought I'll write a melody on top that has kind of ancient folk feel to it, like almost Celtic. You know, it has a nice kind of a teaching feel to it. And then this is query. Like, I've often wondered about the, you know, has that kind of energy to it. I like that. That little kick there. It's a little unusual and exotic and kind of mixing the ancient Greeks with the Druids of the Celtic world and so on. Something going on there that's kind of universal. But I felt a little raw, so I added in this other weird little sound here that was just background noise, really. And that plays along with it to give it a random feel. So it has that kind of, it's explaining, it has an explaining nature. So that piece was easy enough to come up with, and it just has that gentle nature to it that when you're explaining things, it just works. So with this part, I wanted to use the original motif, that kind of persistent rhythm, just like a watch movement. But now I wanted to add something new, something mysterious. So I came up with this kind of haunting flute. So a little bit Persian, Egyptian there at the end, which is kind of cool. So I brought back in the motif again, but much more broken down. To add extra mystery as we're discovering how they've brought this amazing law in the universe into fruition, they started experimenting with it and coming up with new ways of using it. Then we have octaves. That's just octaves in the, it's just a flute. So you put them together like it's two flutes playing. And I just build up until eventually you have strings doing it. You have all sorts of, I even use these big funny sounds again. begins to build up and build up. At a certain point, I have strings, I have all sorts of instruments playing this thing. A little funny there and unusual and so on. In the end, that musical end there worked perfectly with the video. It was kind of spooky, like how perfect it was. Of course, I had to make different lengths and different edits of these things in order to slide them into the video. But essentially, I had the raw materials that I needed to construct the documentary or the episode or whatever.
His clock sets a new world standard with an accuracy of plus or minus 1 second per month. That's more accurate than your most expensive Rolex watch today. There was the candle clock, a simple burning of a candle with markers on the side. As the flame moves down past the markers, units of time are counted. In Japan, geishas use incense. As each stick burns away, they know how long they've been cleaning and how much to charge for their services. He doesn't know it yet, but he's about to discover something that will change timekeeping and the world forever, and reveal one of the secrets of the gods.